Okay, so today we're going to be looking at Adobe Fresco. I have a pen in my hand, a stylus, and I'm just going to start drawing on the page like so. So what this is on this page is a pixel pen, and I've selected that pixel pen on the left-hand side over here. You can choose different options. You can also import different packages. So I've imported a few different options to basically give you lots of different types of pens. So special effects pens, you've got lettering pens, which are quite useful in terms of calligraphy. There's lots of options that you can download from the internet and import them. You can select your favorites as well. So I've got a few of my favorites there, which is very, very useful. Spencer Nugent, a great guy in terms of his sketching skills. I've taken some of his packages and some of his pens because the man's done it for a long time and he's very, very talented and knows what he's doing. So this is a basic pixel layer, pixel brush. On the right hand side here, I've got a background layer that I can select, or I've got my pixel layer that I'm currently on. If I wanted to add more layers, just above it to the right, we've got this add layer tool, so I can click that. I can hold it down and select maybe a vector layer or a pixel layer. A vector layer can be scaled up to kind of infinite size and it won't lose its quality, whereas a pixel layer will lose its quality. If I want, I can select a layer like this and I can hide it with this eye tool. I can clip it, which we'll talk about a bit more in a different video, or I can change the kind of brightness and the contrast. So you can see there how this works in terms of, let's go back to 0 for that, and the contrast as well for different types of pen. This will obviously have a much greater effect. And this is quite tricky. I don't have a keyboard. Let's go back to 0. Got blend mode here as well, which we'll talk about more later on, and the layer opacity that you can change as well. So lots of different options there if you wish to use them. Another way of selecting it is up here, up the top, to get to that kind of quickly. And we've got our layers that we can hide here like so. This grid can be useful if you want, if you're working in perspective, so we can add different types of grids on. You can see there, basic graph. You can add a perspective one for 2 point or even 3 points if you so wish. It's great if you are learning, but for most of you, you probably already know how to use this. So you can change how this grid works. Yeah, if you're doing technical drawing, it might be useful for you. It's completely up to you how you use these. But we're not going to keep them on. We're going to turn them off for now. So we have used, in fact, let's just delete that layer there. We don't need that. So I've right-clicked, I've deleted the layer. So we're currently sketching on this pixel layer here like so. We've got a black pen selected. If we want to choose the different color, we can use this different color picker down here. We've got the red at the moment. Very, very easy. If we wanted to go and get that color quickly, we've got this eye dropper down here. So say I wanted the black again, I could go in, choose the black, and it selects this for us very, very easily. We've got a live brush, which can be quite useful. Say we wanted to select a watercolor style, we can then draw, and you can see that that water kind of bleeds out across the canvas, which can be nice for kind of artsy things that you're doing. You can always also use oil, which is exactly the kind of same style. It's a bit more live in the sense that the brush moves a little bit when you go over the top of it multiple times, just as an oil painting would. Okay, so those are kind of your standard brushes. You've also got a vector brush, which, as we spoke about earlier, you can scale up to different sizes. Maybe you're doing outlines and you want it to be able to, scale up to a mural on a wall. That could be something that you might use. We've also got this rubber on the left-hand side here, so I can just use that to go over things and rub stuff out, which is useful. Or if you've got a pen in your hand, you can flip it over and you can just use the back of the pen like so. Again, same things apply in terms of the size, in terms of the flow, and in terms of the smoothing, all options that you can change. We're not going to use the smudge tool today, but you can use smudges to do all kinds of different things, different effects, which can be useful. But that is all in terms of the brushes. I've just clicked on the transform tool. You can scale things up and down using that. You can change the perspective. So as you can see, depending on what you select, you can distort things. There's lots of different options there. It's completely up to you with how you use those. Top left to click cancel, or we can select done up there on the top right, and that has changed the kind of, as we said, the perspective of that part. We have got different selections. So what I'm going to quickly do is I'm going to draw a box, but I'm going to choose one of my favorites. I'm going to go back to, let's go with this little smoothie here. Let's draw just a really quick, simple, excuse the quality of this box, just to kind of show what we can do with our selection tools. The lasso, you can basically select any shape that you draw. So I'm going to roughly draw around this outline here. It's not going to be very accurate. And you can see we've got our selection done like so. If you then wanted to go back in and add some watercolor painting to it, potentially, might still be my, it is still the oil painting. So let's go back to our watercolor. It's a little bit easy to understand. Let's go for the soft. Let's just check the size. It's quite a large size. Check the flows, quite high. So when I come back over, you can see it only selects the inside. Now you'll notice that I've painted on the same layer that I am drawing the outline on. So if I just double click with my, two tap with my fingers and select a different layer on the right, and I go over this, you'll see there is now no bleed from that section that we had drawn in. So there is the simple not paint selection tool, but draw selection tool. We can then go back into our selection option over here. We can use the magic wand and we can select just this top face. Now it's selected the whole canvas because I'm back on the old layer, the top layer, which is not where we drew our rectangle or our cuboid, sorry. So if I deselect this and I go back onto this pixel layer over here and I now select that top face, it is only seeing this outline, which is helpful. I can then go back onto my other layer if I want to, and I could say, draw this. Let's go for a horrible green color. Oops. And let's not go for there. Let's go for a watercolor. And on the inside, you can kind of see that's only going on the inside of that selection. Again, deselect that. It's quite useful for drawing really accurate lines in terms of, coloring in really accurate parts. We could also, if I go back onto my pixel layer with the colors there, there's different selection options. You can see you can paint a selection, rectangle, ellipse. You can play around with those and get used to them. We've got the paint bucket tool. So let's go for a different color again, and let's go for, say, this blue. I can basically use the paint bucket tool to only fill in certain parts that I have drawn. So I'm on my layer on the right with my outlines, and I've just tapped on the inside with my paint bucket and it has filled that section. Further down the left here, we've got different shapes that we can use, so you can click and drag them around. At the moment, I've got this kind of random shape that is here. Select different options. You may want to use them, you may not. Yeah, it's completely up to you with those. Let me just move that. I didn't mean to undo that. That's fine. So let's keep that there for now. Okay, so we've got this section. You could also add text if you wanted to. Let's go for a new layer just for this. You could basically outline the size of your text there. You can change it in terms of scale. If you've got a keyboard, you can type this in, or you can get the keyboard up. So we could go for just backspace this. There we go. Text, simple. Sorted. So I can move this around with my two fingers. You can then change the opacity if you so wish. You can change the color, you can change the size, all the normal stuff with text options that you might want to use. We've spoken about the eyedropper, and then finally down here is basically if you want to add in images or take a live photo and then sketch over the top of it, you could do that from this location. So that's kind of the really basic outline of Adobe Fresco. There's a couple more things that we can experiment with. I'm just going to very quickly show you this ruler tool down the bottom. So if I go back to my pixel brush, let's go for a new layer and let's change the color to like a dark purple. You can then use this ruler if you wanted to do perfectly straight lines. Can be quite useful. You've got different shapes down here as well. So you've got the circle. This is fantastic for if you are trying to draw ellipses. They can be tricky, so you can use this to then draw a really nice, neat ellipse. I could then move that down. So I wanted to do a really like squished cylinder. We could use this here, get rid of that. You can draw up the sides, etc., and you're sorted. Really useful. You've got different shapes down here if you wish. When you are sketching, normally, if you sketch a line and hold it down, it's going to draw a perfect straight line. If you do a circle and hold at the end point, it's going to draw a nice elliptical slash circle kind of thing. So let's try and get a slightly better circle. You can see there, that was a terrible circle I drew, and it's now nice and perfect. So sketch any kind of line normally, or if you want straight lines, sketch it, hold it, and it'll do the line for you. So there is a really basic overview of Adobe Fresco and the commands. There's lots more that you can do, but hopefully this is a nice starting point to get going, experiment with all the different options and see how you get on.